The message came on a Tuesday. All across Earth, every radio telescope, satellite dish, and communication array received the same clear signal. It was not random noise or a natural phenomenon. It was words, alien words, carefully structured and clearly meant for human ears. Dr. Alan Wright was eating a sandwich when his computer beeped. He nearly choked as he read the incoming data. The pattern was unmistakable. After years of searching the stars, humanity finally had proof they were not alone. "Get me the director," he said, his voice shaking. Now. Within hours, the United Nations called an emergency meeting. Scientists, military leaders, and politicians gathered in New York. The aliens called themselves the Harmonics, and their message was simple yet troubling. "We must speak immediately. A great danger approaches your world." Lieutenant Olivia Dias stood at the back of the crowded room, watching the arguments unfold. As a military communications expert, she had been brought in to assess the threat level of the message. "We cannot simply answer an alien transmission without understanding their intentions," argued the Russian representative. "This could be the first step in an invasion plan." The Chinese delegate nodded in agreement. "They speak of danger, but perhaps they are the danger they warn about." Ellen stepped forward, frustration clear on his face. "The Harmonics have sent detailed information about themselves and their civilization. They appear to be peaceful. They're 17 light years away and are clearly more advanced than us. If they wanted to harm us, they wouldn't need to trick us first." President Clark of the United States raised his hand for silence. "The question before us is simple. Do we answer this call or not?" The vote was close, but fear won over curiosity. Earth would remain silent, watching and waiting to see what the aliens would do next. Days passed, then weeks. The Harmonics sent more messages, each more urgent than the last. They spoke of something called the Void, a force that destroyed everything in its path. They offered help, technology, and protection. Olivia reviewed each transmission carefully. "They're getting desperate," she told Alan one evening as they worked late in the hastily assembled alien communication center. The latest message included mathematical formulas that seemed to describe some kind of shield technology. Ellen nodded grimly. "And still we say nothing." "Orders are orders," Olivia replied, though her voice revealed her doubts. 3 months after the first contact, the Harmonics sent one final message. Unlike the others, this one was short. "We cannot wait any longer. The Void approaches your system. We offered you the means to protect yourselves, but you chose silence. Some things cannot be stopped once they begin. We are sorry." Then nothing. The transmission ended, and despite Earth's best efforts to scan that region of space, no further communications came from the Harmonics. The world leaders celebrated cautiously, believing they had avoided a potential trap. News outlets gradually stopped covering the alien scare, and people returned to their daily lives. Only a small group of scientists, including Alan and Olivia, continued to study the warnings. What if they were telling the truth? Olivia asked one night, staring at the stars through the observatory's window. Alan had no answer. He just kept working, trying to decode the technical information buried in the alien transmissions. Something about the mathematics suggested changes to fundamental physical constants, impossible things that kept him awake at night. 6 months after the silence began, the first strange readings appeared at the edge of the solar system. By then, it was already too late. The Void had arrived, and humanity had missed their only warning. Dr. William Hayes had seen many strange things during his 30 years watching the stars, but nothing like this. The readings from the edge of the solar system made no sense. Energy patterns shifted and changed in ways that broke all known laws of physics. "Run the tests again," he told his team at Meridian Observatory. "These results can't be right." But the tests showed the same thing each time. Something was out there, bending the rules of reality itself. William remembered the alien messages from 6 months ago. The Harmonics had mentioned the Void using strange terms that scientists had dismissed as translation errors. Now, comparing those descriptions to his current readings, cold fear spread through his body. The warnings had been real. Across the world, other signs appeared. Military satellites began failing without explanation. Phone calls dropped. Internet connections slowed down. Small, unexplainable events that most people ignored. At NASA headquarters, Dr. Karen Miller noticed something even more troubling. The speed of light had changed, just slightly, but enough to be measured. It was impossible, yet her instruments didn't lie. The fundamental constants are shifting, she explained to her confused colleagues. It's like the basic rules that make our universe work are being rewritten. No one believed her at first. How could the laws of physics themselves change? But when more measurements showed the same results, panic began to spread among the scientific community. Meanwhile, Professor George Franklin, a retired linguistics expert, had been studying the harmonics messages since they stopped coming. Working alone in his small apartment, he finally decoded parts of their final transmissions that others had missed. The void isn't a thing, he explained when he called Dr. Wright. It's a process, a wave of reality breaking down and reforming. The harmonics were trying to give us technology to stabilize our region of space. Alan Wright gathered Olivia Diaz and the others who had taken the alien warning seriously. They met in secret, away from government officials who had dismissed their concerns. We need to try contacting the harmonics again, Alan said. They might still be out there. The group used a private satellite dish to send messages toward the harmonics star system. Days passed with no response. They tried different frequencies, different languages, even attempting to use the mathematical patterns the aliens had shared. Only silence answered them. Meanwhile, the strange effects grew stronger. A small research ship sent to investigate the anomalies at the edge of the solar system disappeared completely. Radar showed it approaching the disturbance, then nothing, as if it had never existed. President Clark finally called another emergency meeting when the evidence became impossible to ignore. This time, fear had a different flavor. Not fear of alien trickery, but fear that humanity had made a terrible mistake. We should have answered them, Olivia said as she presented her findings to the world leaders. The harmonics were trying to help us. Can we fix this ourselves? Asked the French delegate. Build our own protection using what they sent. Alan shook his head. We only have fragments of the technology they offered. It's like trying to build a car when you've only seen a wheel. As the meeting continued, news arrived that made everyone fall silent. The first void anomaly had appeared on Earth, a small area in Antarctica, where gravity had simply stopped working. Research station equipment and even buildings had floated away into the sky. It was just the beginning. The void had arrived, and humanity would have to face it alone. The news channels could barely keep up. Each hour brought reports of new anomalies appearing around the world. What had started in Antarctica now spread like a disease across the planet. In a small town in Nebraska, water began flowing upward, forming impossible towers that reached toward the clouds before raining back down. On a busy street in Tokyo, time slowed to a crawl, trapping hundreds of people in a bubble where seconds stretched into hours. And in Chicago, gravity reversed in a 50-block area, sending cars, street signs, and even people flying upward into the sky. The death toll rose by the thousands. General Vincent Howard stood in the Pentagon's command center, watching the disaster unfold on multiple screens. 25 years in the military had not prepared him for this. How do you fight an enemy that breaks the rules of reality? Sir, our units in Miami are reporting that bullets aren't working properly, a young officer reported. They'd fire the guns, but the bullets turned to sand before hitting anything. The general wiped his tired eyes. Pull them back. Focus on evacuation only. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Olivia Diaz had joined a group of scientists working outside government channels. Their makeshift lab was set up in an old warehouse, filled with equipment borrowed, stolen, or built from scratch. Look at this, she said, pointing to her computer screen where she had organized all the harmonics technical data. There's a pattern here. They were describing some kind of field generator that can stabilize physical constants in a local area. Dr. Alan Wright studied the diagrams she had pieced together. Even if we understand how it works, building it would require materials we don't have. We have to try, Olivia insisted. It's the only lead we have. Across town, Dr. Karen Miller worked with another team, measuring and mapping the anomalies. Her findings were troubling. They're growing, she explained during an emergency broadcast. Each void zone starts small but expands at an increasing rate. At this pace, entire continents will be affected within weeks. People around the world watched her broadcast in terror. Panic spread. Millions fled cities, creating massive traffic jams that became death traps when new anomalies appeared on highways. In some places, time flowed backward. In others, matter changed its basic properties. Solid ground became liquid, air turned briefly solid, choking those caught inside. Religious leaders called it the end times. Scientists struggled for explanations. Governments fell apart as their leaders hid or fled. But not everyone gave up. In their warehouse lab, Alan and Olivia made a breakthrough. With help from Professor Franklin's translations, they managed to build a small prototype of the harmonics device, a machine they called a reality anchor. It should create a field where physics behaves normally, Alan explained to their team. But we won't know until we test it. Testing meant entering an active void zone, possibly a suicide mission. Olivia volunteered immediately. I was part of the team that recommended silence, she said. I need to help fix this. With the prototype carefully packed in a specially designed case, Olivia approached the edge of a void zone that had formed in a suburban neighborhood. Inside, trees grew in seconds, aged and died in minutes, only to reverse and begin again. The air shimmered like heat waves. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The sensation was indescribable, like being pulled in all directions at once while time stuttered around her. Quickly, before the zone could affect her too badly, she activated the reality anchor. A small bubble of normality formed around her. Inside this bubble, physics worked as it should. It was small, only about 10 feet across, but it was proof the harmonics technology could work. Over her radio, she heard Alan's excited voice. It's working. Olivia, you did it. For the first time in weeks, humanity had hope. News of the reality anchor spread quickly. Olivia Diaz became an overnight hero, her face appearing on emergency broadcasts worldwide. For the first time since the void appeared, people dared to hope. But the small prototype had serious limitations. Its field only extended about 10 feet in any direction. It required rare materials to build. And worst of all, it needed enormous power to operate, enough to run a small city. We need to make it bigger and more efficient, Alan told the growing team of scientists and engineers who had joined their project. And we need to build hundreds of them. Around the world, surviving governments pooled their resources. Manufacturing plants were converted to produce parts for reality anchors. Power plants worked overtime. Scientists shared information openly, forgetting old rivalries in the face of extinction. General Howard arrived at the warehouse lab with a squad of soldiers and a truck full of equipment. The president sent me, he explained. Whatever you need, it's yours. Just tell us how to beat this thing. Captain Lisa Martinez stood at his side. As leader of the newly formed Void Response Unit, she would be responsible for deploying the reality anchors in active void zones. My team is ready, she said. Just show us how these devices work. While Olivia trained Martinez's team, Alan worked with Dr. Karen Miller to improve the anchor design. They managed to extend its range and reduce its power consumption, but progress was slow. We're missing something, Karen said one night as they studied the harmonics technical data. There's a whole section here about field resonance that we can't decode. Professor Franklin joined them, his eyes tired from weeks of constant work. I've been thinking about the harmonics language. It's not just words. It contains concepts we don't have. The way they described the void suggested it might be more than a natural phenomenon. "What do you mean?" Alan asked. "I think," Franklin said slowly, "the void might be alive, in some way we can't understand." The idea seemed impossible, yet it matched patterns they had observed. Void zones sometimes reacted to human presence. They expanded faster when attacked. They even seemed to target critical infrastructure. "If it's alive," Olivia said, "can we communicate with it, reason with it?" "We don't even know if it thinks in any way we could understand," Franklin replied. As they debated, an alarm sounded. A new void zone had appeared, the largest yet, covering most of downtown Los Angeles. Millions were trapped inside. Captain Martinez prepared her team for deployment. With 5 improved reality anchors loaded into specialized vehicles, they headed toward the edge of the zone. "Remember your training," Olivia told them over the radio. "Set up the anchors in a pentagon formation. Once activated, they should create a stable corridor for evacuation." The world watched through drone cameras as Martinez's team entered the zone. Inside, buildings stretched and compressed like rubber. Streets folded into impossible shapes. People moved in jerky stop motion, caught in time distortions. The deployment wasn't perfect. 2 team members were lost when a building suddenly aged 1,000 years and collapsed. But the anchors were placed successfully and activated. A pathway of normal space formed through the chaos, allowing trapped civilians to escape. It was humanity's first major victory against the void. As Martinez's team celebrated their success, a strange signal came through all communication channels. It wasn't from Earth. The message was short but clear. "We are the collectors. We have observed your fight against the void. We offer assistance. We will arrive soon." Another alien species had made contact. This time, humanity was ready to listen. They came in ships unlike anything humans had imagined. Not metal and engines, but living tissue that pulsed and changed shape. 5 massive organic vessels entered Earth orbit 3 days after their message. Military forces worldwide went on high alert. Fighter jets scrambled. Missile systems locked on targets. The memory of ignoring the harmonics was fresh, but so was the fear of alien intentions. "Do not fire," President Clark ordered. "Let's hear what they have to say first." The collectors sent a small shuttle to land at a designated meeting point in neutral Switzerland. World leaders gathered, along with the scientists who had been fighting the void. From the shuttle emerged beings with translucent skin that shifted colors as they moved. They walked on 4 limbs but could use their front legs as arms when needed. Their heads housed 3 large eyes that blinked independently. "We are the collectors," the lead alien said, its voice coming from a device around its neck. "We have studied the void for many cycles of your sun. We have survived by understanding it." Unlike the harmonics, who had relied on technology, the collectors explained that they had evolved biological adaptations to detect and navigate void disturbances. They had been watching Earth since the harmonics' failed communication attempt. The harmonics approach was flawed, the collector leader explained. They believed technology alone could contain the void. "We know better." Dr. Karen Miller and biologist Dr. Peter Simmons were invited aboard the collector ship to study their biological adaptations. What they found amazed them. "Their cells can sense changes in physical constants," Karen reported back. "They literally feel when reality is about to break down." Peter added, "And they can adjust their bodies to survive conditions that would kill us instantly." While the scientists worked with the collectors, tensions remained high. Many humans didn't trust these new aliens. General Howard kept his forces ready, watching the collector ships carefully. "Why help us?" Olivia asked during a meeting with the collector leader. "What do you gain?" The alien's skin rippled with blue patterns, an expression of emotion. "We are few. Our numbers dwindle each cycle, but you humans are many and possess something unique." "What's that?" Ellen asked. "Chaos," the collector replied. "Your minds work in patterns that are unpredictable. You argue. You disagree. You try solutions that seem irrational. The humans exchanged confused looks. Most intelligent species think alike. The collector continued. They follow logical paths. The void consumes them easily because it can predict their responses. But you humans, you surprise even yourselves with what you do. The void struggles to predict you. Tests confirmed the collector's theory. When humans operated reality anchors, the devices worked better than when run by automated systems. Human unpredictability somehow strengthened the fields. Working together, the human scientists and collectors began developing hybrid technology. They combined harmonic designs with collector biological components, all guided by human creativity. It's like the ultimate mixed team, Peter said as they worked. Tech, biology, and human chaos all working together. The first hybrid anchor was ready within a week. Captain Martinez volunteered to test it in a void zone that had consumed most of Denver. The device not only created a stable field but pushed the void back, something previously thought impossible. For the first time, humans weren't just defending, they were reclaiming lost territory. As news of the success spread, people began to believe they might actually win this fight. The void, however, was about to change the rules again. Captain Lisa Martinez stood at the edge of what was once Seattle. Her team carried the newest hybrid anchors, devices that glowed with an inner blue light and pulsed like living hearts. Behind her, a convoy of trucks waited with supplies and rescue teams. "Remember," she told her soldiers, "we're not just defending this time. We're taking back our city." 6 months had passed since the void first appeared. Humanity had lost nearly a third of the planet to reality distortions. But now, with collector help, they were fighting back. The void response units had grown from one small team to an international force of thousands. They moved in perfect coordination, setting up hybrid anchors in precisely calculated patterns. As each device activated, normal reality pushed outward, forcing the void to retreat. "It's working," a young soldier shouted as buildings stopped shifting and settled back into their proper shapes. Streets that had been twisted into impossible loops straightened. Time flowed normally again. Back at the Central Command Center, Dr. Alan Wright watched the operation through satellite feeds. Beside him, Dr. Karen Miller monitored energy readings. "The pattern is holding," she said. "Seattle will be completely reclaimed in 3 hours." Similar operations were happening worldwide. Paris, Moscow, Beijing, Cairo, everywhere. Humans worked alongside collectors to push back the void. Professor Franklin entered the room, excitement clear on his face. "We've made a breakthrough in understanding the void's patterns. There's definitely intelligence behind it." He showed them new data revealing how the void responded to their attacks. It wasn't random. It was strategic, adapting to their tactics, learning from each encounter. "If it's intelligent," Alan said, "can we communicate with it?" Before Franklin could answer, alarms blared. On screens around the room, strange images appeared. Within void zones across the world, human shapes were forming. Perfect copies of people, but with eyes that glowed with swirling energy. General Howard burst into the room. "They're appearing everywhere. Void zones are producing human duplicates." The collectors called them void echoes, manifestations of the void that had copied human form. Unlike the mindless chaos of earlier void effects, these echoes could speak. Their message was always the same. "We are not your enemy. We are your evolution." In Seattle, Captain Martinez found herself face to face with an echo that looked exactly like her. Its skin rippled with the same patterns as the void zones. "Your resistance is unnecessary," the echo said in her voice. "The change cannot be stopped, only embraced." Similar encounters happened worldwide. The echoes didn't attack physically. Instead, they tried to convince humans to stop fighting, to accept the void as the next step in universal evolution. Some people listened. Cults formed, worshipping the void as a divine force. Sabotage attempts against reality anchors increased. The collectors warned this was a common tactic. "Many species fall to this deception," their leader explained. The void mimics what you understand, uses your own forms to gain trust. Despite the new challenge, the counter-offensive continued. Scientists developed ways to detect echoes. Military forces protected the anchor networks. A plan formed to create a massive counterpulse, a synchronized activation of hundreds of hybrid anchors that could stabilize an entire continent at once. North America was chosen as the testing ground. As preparations reached their final stages, the echoes grew more desperate. They began revealing information about the harmonics, claiming the aliens hadn't been destroyed but transformed. Ask yourselves, an echo told Olivia during an encounter, why the harmonics stopped communicating. Not because they perished, but because they evolved beyond your understanding. The seeds of doubt were planted, even as humanity prepared its biggest strike against the void. The day of the counterpulse arrived. Hundreds of hybrid anchors were positioned across North America in a complex pattern designed by both human and collector scientists. Each device hummed with power, drawing energy from emergency generators. All teams report ready, General Howard announced in the command center. Around him, screens showed anchor teams waiting for the signal. Dr. Alan Wright checked the final calculations one last time. If this works, we'll create a stable zone covering the entire continent. President Clark gave the order. Begin the sequence. One by one, the anchors activated. Fields of normal physics expanded and connected. The void retreated from cities, forests, and mountains. Where chaos had ruled for months, order returned. But something unexpected happened. As the fields merged, strange energy patterns appeared within the stabilized zone. Not void distortions, but something new, shimmering doorways of light. From these doorways emerged tall, crystalline beings that seemed to shift between solid form and pure energy. They moved with graceful purpose toward the command center. The harmonics, Professor Franklin whispered in awe. They've returned. Dr. Karen Miller's instruments went wild. They're not just aliens, she said. They exist partially in other dimensions. That's why they stopped communicating. They evolved beyond normal space-time. The beings entered the command center without resistance. Their bodies hummed with the same frequency as the hybrid anchors. When they spoke, their voices resonated directly in everyone's minds. We have waited for you to understand, they said. The void is not destruction, but transformation. The universe changes its nature periodically, as it has done many times before. They explained that the void was a natural phase shift in reality itself. Most species either perished during these shifts or hid from them, as the collectors had done for millennia. The harmonics had chosen a third path, to evolve with the change. We tried to help you transition safely, they continued. But your silence forced us to leave you to face the change unprepared. Captain Martinez, who had been brought to the command center to report on field operations, stepped forward. If this change is natural, why fight it? Why help us resist? The harmonics' crystal forms pulsed with light. Because your resistance itself is important. No species has ever fought the transformation as you have. In doing so, you've created something new. Dr. Miller understood first. The hybrid anchors, they're not just preserving old physics. They're creating a blend of both states. Yes, the harmonics confirmed. You have found a middle path, not clinging to the old reality, not surrendering to the new, but creating something between. This has never happened before. The void echoes had been telling partial truths. The universe was indeed changing, but humans had found a unique solution through their stubborn refusal to give up. Working together, humans, collectors, and harmonics expanded the stabilized zones. Within these areas, they created a careful balance of old and new physics, a pocket universe where both could exist together. The harmonics shared their knowledge of multidimensional mathematics, helping humanity understand the new reality. The collectors provided biological adaptations that allowed humans to sense and interact with aspects of the changed universe. We refused to talk when we should have listened, President Clark said during a worldwide address 1 year after the first contact. That mistake nearly cost us everything. But in fighting for survival, we discovered something greater, a new way forward, not just for ourselves, but for all species. The transformation continued throughout the universe, but Earth stood as a unique bridge between realities, a testament to human stubbornness and creativity in the face of cosmic change. Sometimes, refusing to accept the inevitable creates possibilities that no one could have imagined.